So I have a little bit of a confession to make. I've played a lot of disc golf and I own a lot of discs, but there's one major company that I've literally never thrown a disc from. And I'm embarrassed to say that's Prodigy. But that all changes today because Prodigy sent me out their brand new Archive mid-range. This is the brand new Isaac Robinson Signature Series disc, and I'm incredibly excited to get out and throw this. Today, we have two objectives. One is to see how this disc flies, just get a general sense for the disc, what it's like, what the stability is, how workable it is, and the other is to see if it has a place in my bag. Let's get into it. So here we go, hole one, place 315 straight ahead. We have a little bit of a left to right wind out here today. We're gonna start off the first throw with the Prodigy Archive. We're gonna start in the 400 plastic. Let's see how this flies. We're gonna try and hit it flat, just a little bit out to the right. Based on the flight numbers, we'll expect it to finish back left pretty hard. Popped out on a little bit of hyzer and just pushing hyzer the whole way. It's a pretty nice flight though. Let's try in the 500 plastic just to compare those two. See how this one flies. Okay, so that one definitely flipped a little bit more on me. Seems like the 400 plastic's a little more overstable than the 500. Not a bad flight though. So there are a couple discs that I want to also throw out here just to compare and see how similar the flight is. One is the Trust by Latitude 64. It has the exact same flight numbers, so I'm expecting it to fly very similar. The other is the Malta, which is the overstable mid I bagged for a long time before it was eventually kicked out by the Buzzz OS. Just based on what I've heard and the flight numbers of this disc, I'm expecting it will challenge for that overstable mid slot in my bag, so I want to see how it compares to this Buzzz OS. But let's start off with the Trust. Same exact flight numbers. We're going to try and throw it just the same as those Archives. See how similar it is. So that pushed straight for a long time. It was a little nose up, so it just sort of stalled out there at the end. I'd say more similar to the flight of the 500 plastic, but kind of right in between the two. Let's try the Malta. Yeah, held the hyzer the whole time. Not a lot of flip up on that. Kind of more similar to the 400 plastic. Last but not least, let's throw the Buzzz OS. Yeah, pushing hyzer, dumping pretty hard. Definitely a little more overstable than the Archive, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out through this round. All right, hole two, place 306, straight ahead, basket up on the left, but the wind is the exact opposite of hole one, which is why I find these two holes really good starting holes when comparing and testing new discs. Let's throw in the same order, starting with the 400 plastic Archive. Okay, definitely got over on that one a little bit, but you can see it still has the integrity to fight back. Not a bad shot. Let's throw the 500 plastic. Not a bad flight, pushes straight. Nice big left finish actually. That's not gonna be too far off from the basket. Let's put the Trust out there, see if we can't hit a similar line to that 500 plastic. Nice flat to slight hyzer release. Yeah, very similar line. Actually, very similar result as well. Let's throw the Malta out there. Oh, sawed that one off a little bit. You can see a lot more overstable though. A lot less push, just gets left really quick out there. All right, last but not least, the Buzzz OS. I'm gonna try and hit this flat, see if we can't show off the stability. Here's our Archive in the 500 plastic. Right down there is the Trust. They both went about the same distance. So you can see that 5502 on both these discs seems to be pretty accurate. I'm not seeing a ton of turn, but definitely a strong fade at the end of both these discs. And I will say, so far, the Trust and the Archive fly pretty similar. I think definitely the Buzzz OS more overstable than the Archive. The Malta, I would say, touch more overstable than the Archive, at least the newer Big Z one that I'm throwing. The truss though seems like it's pretty much right in line. The discs don't necessarily feel exactly the same, but they seem to have a similar flight. Hole 3 plays 270 baskets tucked up behind those trees. This should be a good test of stability for us because we need that strong left finish to get around and behind those trees. We're gonna start off with a 400 plastic Archive first, try and hit it just a little bit to the right, and then let it do its work. A little bit of a headwind on this. Okay, so you see some of the flip up. It was a tiny bit of a hyzer release, but still a strong finish. That's actually a great spot. That should leave us about 20 footer in. Let's try the 500 plastic of the Archive. Try and throw it the same. I tend to have just a baby stock hyzer release, so we'll go with that. Very similar to the 400 plastic. Little flip up, then gets up and just starts moving left. We shorted that one because we're nose up a little bit, so we're in those trees, but overall happy with that flight. A little bit of the flip up, but with the reliable finish. Let's throw the truss to see if the similarities continue. There's the flip up. Let's see the finish. Yeah, maybe a little bit less finish actually than the Archive. Similar flip up to push straight flight, but maybe a tiny bit less finish. I have this really beat up ESP Malta that's been in my bag for a long time. This one's pretty beat in, so I'm gonna throw this and see if it's more comparable to the Archive than that newer Big Z one that I think was just a little more overstable. Now see, even that shot, you just don't get the flip up, so definitely more overstability. And then just one more for comparison, the Buzzz OS. Well, I put that way more right, but as you can see, no really flip up, a little bit of a pushing hyzer, then a much stronger finish there. We have the Buzzz OS, the truss, and the 400 plastic Archive right here in a line, very similar landing spots, but definitely if you watch back to those throws, slightly different flights to get here. That Buzzz OS we put way out to the right, had a way harder finish than similar flights for the truss and the Archive, but that Archive just had a little bit stronger finish than the truss, which is why it's another couple feet towards the basket. Wow, hey, we're actually putting well for once. I like that. Well, I say that and I miss, but okay. At least it wasn't low out of the hand. Through 3 holes, I feel like we've established a pretty good sense of how these discs fly. And like I said before, now we turn our attention to, should they make the bag? If you watched my most recent video on the Trash Panda Dune, you know that I'm doing a lot of work on figuring out my bag right now, and I've been thinking a lot about my mid-range slots. Right now, I bag an Uplink, a Dune, a Buzzz, and a Buzzz OS. So the Archive really would be fighting probably for that Buzzz OS, that overstable slot. The question that I have to figure out and decide for myself is, how overstable do I need? The Buzzz OS works for me sort of as just a longer zone. I don't throw it a ton, but I found with my Maltas, which I had in that slot before, they didn't hold up to the forehand, whereas the Buzzz OS, because it's more beefy, it really does. But because my Buzzz OS has a very similar flight to the zone, it just pushes a little longer, I don't tend to throw it a ton. I usually go zone straight up to a Captain's Raptor or something like that, and the Buzzz OS gets skipped quite a bit. My theory is that the Archive might actually give us a little more use because it has a little more glide while still having the dependable finish, where my Dune and my Buzzz just have a little bit of a straighter sit down in terms of finish. But what we now need to see with the Archive is how it holds up on the Anheuser, what kind of fight back it has, and especially how it holds up on the forehand, because that, to me, was the big selling point to the Buzzz OS over the Malta. So on this hole, we're here at hole 4. This one plays a little bit longer, straight ahead into the gap and down. We're gonna try the flex shot with all these discs, try and get out on Anheuser to really test the stability. This hole plays 380. We're gonna go in the same order, 400 plastic Archive up first. Anheuser release. Okay, big Annie on that one. Look at it fight back. Yeah, okay, so it's got some great integrity. I like that a lot, actually. Let's throw the 500 plastic. See, it was a slow pan to a slow fight back. It wasn't too harsh. Let's try the 500 plastic. Well, okay, that was just atrocious. That was straight into the ground. As you can see, anhyzer releases are not my bread and butter. We'll work on that. Let's put the trust out there. Okay, much better release, much closer to the first archive. You can see less fight back. It just sort of drifted right a little bit longer, whereas the archive sort of got out of it. We're gonna throw the Malta and then the Buzzz OS, similar line. Oh, ton of anti on that one. I mean, that's not a fair comparison. Buzzz OS, let's see if we can't be consistent for once. Okay, good anhyzer out of it. There's the fight back and the drop. See, a lot less glide on that Buzzz OS as well. You can see it just doesn't want to carry as far. It's not drifting and gliding as much. It's just sort of chunking along and then just dies at the end. Here's that 500 plastic archive that we just burned over atrociously. We're still ways back from the gap, maybe 100, 150 feet, 200 feet to the basket. I want to try just a little approach forehand though. Not how I would really use this disc probably in tournament play. This would probably be where my zone would slip in, or actually for this shot, it'd probably just be a putter up shot, but we're interested to see the stability and the forehand. I will say a little bit deeper this disc than some of my other mids, but it does still feel pretty good in the forehand grip. So let's see how this goes. So that held up to that torque better than I expected. I hit that flat. Obviously it was a standstill approach shot, not a ton of power, but I still expected a little bit of turn. It really just pushed straight and then dunked. That's really interesting. Here's our Buzzz OS. That 400 plastic archive is about 30 feet forward in the exact same line. So it just gives you a little bit idea of the difference in glide between these two discs. I feel like I threw them pretty much the same power in a very similar angle. So couple quick forehand approach shots. Wow, that was not it. Just for reference, the truss and the Malta were 30 feet that way. So not even worth really throwing those. They were burned over pretty hard. We did get to see though difference in stability. Well, and the Malta was just a bad shot. Here's that archive, 400 plastic. You can see the basket tucked right in there. We're actually gonna just throw this in on the forehand real quick. By throw it in, I mean throw it into a tree. It would have been cool if it worked. So we're now at hole 5. You can see the basket down there behind all of those trees. The tee pad is up here. We're actually gonna pull it back 30 or 40 feet because I really wanna have an opportunity to try these on a more power forehand to see how the stability holds up. It's a forehand shot. The tee pad's just a little close for me to get a good read on how these fly. So we're gonna pull it back a little, try the power forehand with all of these discs. This will be a true test because that's really how I use my overstable mid right now. So this is what I'm most curious about to see if these archives hold up. 400 plastic up first. Oh, wow. I mean, you can see that just burned over into a roller. Not a great release. A lot of wobble. I'll own that. Let me just jump straight to the Buzzz OS, see if I can't replicate that release exactly, which I probably can because I'm not great at the forehand. I'm curious to see if the Buzzz OS burns over as well or if that was the disc. See, it started to go, very similar release I think, but it came back. That's the difference in stability. And I know that's an issue with my forehand, but having that overstability is so forgiving when my forehand is so bad. It's so prone to wobble and to the anhyzer release. So that might be an issue for me. Let's try the 500 plastic. See, I got that out on a lot of hyzer. Definitely wobbled, don't get me wrong, but it flipped up and turned, big S turn, and then dunked back. Interesting. Let's try the Malta. If you remember, the forehand is the reason the Malta came out of the bag in the first place and the Buzzz OS came in. So I'm curious to see how this goes. Yeah, it's that right there. Very similar forehand line to that archive. It just doesn't quite have the overstability to deal with my crummy forehand. I have a feeling I know how this is gonna go, but let's be consistent. Forehand the trust. Wind's picking up just a little. So we are also forehanding into a headwind. Let's keep that in mind. There's a little bit of a left to right headwind, but a headwind nonetheless. And there it goes. Just straight into the woods. So because I got more height on that one, it didn't burn all the way over like that first archive, but had I thrown it the same, it absolutely would have. This is the last hole we're gonna play with these discs for this review. This is hole 6, which only plays 250, but down this tight tunnel. It's a nice little S-line, nice little flex shot down there. What I wanna do on this hole is actually throw these discs against my Hex. This Hex was in my bag for a long time. Is that just neutral to slight stable finish? And what I'm finding is that these archives sit right in between my Hex and my Buzzz OS. They just split the line between straight and neutral and really overstable. So I want to put that to the test. We're going to try and release all of these just flat to slight anhyzer, which I know I'm not very good at, but that's what this hole calls for. It's only 250, so we can power down a little, see if we can't get a nice little S-curve down there. Park this. Let's throw the 400 archive up first. That looks so good. Wow. Definitely slipped a little on the release, but I'm so happy with that flight. A little bit higher than I wanted, but perfect little Annie out of the hands. You can see a nice strong finish down there. Let's split it up. Let's go the Hex now, and then we'll finish with the 500 archive. Definitely missed my line. Pulled that one a little bit because that was a horrible shot that didn't give us much of a frame of reference. I have an MD3 in the bag, which actually flies kind of similar to that Hex. So let's try one more time with that disc. C-line MD3. Let's see if we can actually throw this right this time. No, 0 for 2, 0 for 2, but that's okay. Let's go with our archive. 500 plastic. Really nice, a little high once again, sneaks through everything. I mean, once again, kind of held that baby hyzer because I powered down on it, but flew so nicely all the way down here. Just for the comparison's sake, I'm gonna run and get that Hex and that MD3. We're gonna get one of these. We'll be right back. We're back. Hex up first, just trying to match the speed and release angle of those archives so we can see the difference. Much better, a little lower. Okay, still a little too far right. But I think even in that shot right there, we see that it just has a little bit less stability. Let's try the MD3. I mean, third time's the charm. All right. If I ever needed motivation to suck less, it would be the cardio. Last try, Hex. Come on, Andrew. Just what is, okay, that's all right. Oh my gosh. MD3, suck less, here we go. I can't, I mean, I made it through. Okay, I said last time, Hex is so close though, come on. You know what they've always said, fourth time's the charm, right? That's what they say, right? Okay, you can do it. Oh, we've done it. Okay, and that is exactly what I wanted to show you. Tiny anhyzer release, and it just held the whole way, no fight back. Yes, we did it. We threw a 200-foot shot. Gosh dang it. Okay, I think this is a really great representation of the difference in stability here. You can see the basket right behind me. Over here, right back there, is the Hex. On the right side of the basket, it held that little turn, ended up over in the stuff. Now on the other side of the basket, we're gonna walk to it, stick with me. Now we're moving to the left side of the basket, just deep. You have our 400 plastic archive and our 500 plastic archive. Very similar shots, very similar release angle and speed. One of those discs just held the baby anhyzer, pushed all the way straight. The other two fought back. And that is exactly why I feel like these two discs, the archives that is, sit right in between my Buzzz Hex and my Buzzz OS, which honestly, if we trust flight numbers, that sort of sounds obvious, like no duh, because it's 5502, Hex and Buzzz are 55-11, Buzzz OS is like, I don't know, overstable. But now we've tested it, now we've seen it with our own eyes, and that leaves us in an interesting conundrum when we talk about building our bag. Overall, I have to say, I really like these two discs. As I said, this is my first time ever throwing Prodigy plastic, and color me impressed, man. I know there's been a lot of talk about flashings and things like that, but these discs feel great. I don't feel any of that. The plastic feels really good. Both the 400 and the 500 feel fantastic, and I was really impressed with the flight of these discs, which makes this next part for me hard, and that's figuring out the bag. Like I said at the beginning, I have the uplink for my flippy disc, I have the Dune and the Buzzz for my straight to neutral. The Dune is the newest edition, kind of trying that out for a month, but it's super intriguing the way it just flies dead straight and then sits down. Then I have the Buzzz OS as my overstable mid. This disc fits right in between the Buzzz and the Buzzz OS for me, and I have to say, I don't like the idea of bagging 5 different mid-ranges, 5 different molds. That seems really excessive because on most of today's courses, mids just aren't thrown a ton. You kind of have your putters that go pretty far, and then you skip up to your 7 to 9 speeds for your fairways for a lot of shots, and mid-ranges just tend to fly pretty similar all around to putters. You get a little bit more distance with the mid-range, but you lose a little bit of control, and so mids just aren't thrown that much, both by amateurs and on the Pro Tour, which, like I said, 5 mid-ranges, 5 slots is a lot. I typically like to have 3, but what I will say is after throwing this disc, man, I liked it a lot, and I could really see how this would be a utility for me in the bag for those shots where I need the straight flight of the Buzzz, but I need more finish, more akin to something closer to the Buzzz OS. It seems like the perfect combination of the two. You're gonna get the baby flip up to straight push of the Buzzz, but then you're still gonna have a reliable finish every time. And then when I need that forehand, that's where I have the Buzzz OS in the bag. So what I think I'm gonna do, maybe against better bag building wisdom, I think I'm gonna go with 5 mid-ranges for now. I'm gonna put the archive in the bag. Now it's on probation. It's in a tester slot, right? I might come to find over the next month or so as I play different courses and different rounds that this disc isn't really thrown all that much, or maybe it's my Buzzz OS that's not thrown all that much anymore. I'm really curious to see, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated. So in a month or so, if you want to see what mid-ranges are still in the bag, you can subscribe. Video will be coming out on that later. But overall, the archive is a fantastic disc. This is the new Isaac Robinson signature. I think they did a great job. Should be available now wherever you buy your discs. You can find that or Google it or something. But I gotta say, huge thanks to Prodigy for reaching out and sending me these discs to try out. I'm a big fan, and I have to say, I'm excited to get my hands on some more Prodigy plastics sometime soon, because this was a great first experience, and I've heard great things about a couple of their other molds that now I'm incredibly curious about. Just real quick in terms of plastic, I think it's gonna be the 400 that goes in the bag. It just seems, has a touch more dome maybe, which maybe gives it a touch more, well, yeah, I said that and I might have lied. I think it's gonna be the 400 for now. It just feels a touch better to me, a little more stiff, but actually the 500 feels great too. So we'll start with the 400, I might change that to the 500, but for now, 400 archive in the bag. I'm stoked about this. Hey, appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me know what you thought if you've thrown this disc, what your feelings are, how you feel about bagging 5 different mid-ranges. I know it's a lot, but let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want to. You guys are awesome. My name is Andrew Wood. Remember the journey to destination. Catch you in the next one. Peace. Hey, don't mind us, just out here playing some disc golf, catching some nature appreciation, feeling like Simon Lizotte out here. Look at that. A deer and a baby deer. Eating some grass, not scared of me at all. I love that. How beautiful.